Hello, everyone. Will Jack's mysterious father appear? Will Jack and Tu Tien conquer their new path? That evening, Jack sat in his office, eyes full of thought. The war with Van Thin Group is getting more and more intense. If you can't find a breakthrough, VSB will be suffocated from the very beginning. Suddenly, Jack's phone rang with an unknown number. He hesitated a moment, then picked up the phone. Jack, it's Dad. Jack was stunned. What did he say? I am the biological father of the child. We need to meet. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He knows nothing about his father. Mother never mentioned him, but now, after so many years, he took the initiative to find him. How do I believe? Mr. Jack smiled coldly. I know you are having trouble with Van Thin Group. I can help you. Jack squinted. Why should I trust a stranger? Then come see me. If you don't believe, at least hear the truth about your family. Jack was silent for a long time. Then he replied and sent the address. 30 minutes later, Jack drove to a fancy bar. Located in the city center, he walked in and looked around. In the corner of the room, a middle-aged man in a black suit was waiting for him. Jack pulled up his chair and sat down. Start going home, Jack said, arms crossed, looking straight at the man. The man put the glass of wine down on the table and spoke slowly. My name is Tran Minh H. I am the father of your child, holding a cold face. So where have you been all these years? Amar H sighed. His eyes became distant. Years ago, when my mother and I were pregnant, I had no idea at that time I was caught up in a power struggle. In finance, my grandfather forced my mother and I to leave him because he doesn't want me to get involved with the family. Jack was stunned. My mother was forced to leave him. Amar H nodded. Must he have put pressure, forced mother and child to cut off contact with me? By the time I knew it was too late, my mother took me away. But all these years, I have always watched my child from afar. Jack felt his heart pounding. What I know about family all this time may be only part of the truth. Why did he just appear now? Amar H looked straight into Jack's eyes. Because I am facing Van Thin Group. Jack squinted. What do you mean? Mr. H sighed. I was one of the founders of Van Thin Group. Jack was stunned. What did he say? But I left after discovering that they were involved in shady dealings. They used to be our partners, but now they are your enemies. Jack felt a mixture of emotions well up inside him. What are you here for? He asked coldly. Mr. H looked at him seriously. I can help you gain an advantage over Van Thin. We have enough information about their shady dealings. If you agree, I will give you the documents, prove they bribed officials, and market manipulation. Jack was silent for a long time. If I refuse, Mr. H will smile faintly. I can fight alone, but it is very difficult. Do you dare to bet? Jack squinted. I don't like to rely on AI, especially a stranger who suddenly claims to be his father, but if these documents can help VCB survive. Finally, Jack took a deep breath and replied, show me the document first. Mr. H nodded. See you tomorrow. Jack stood up and walked out of the bar. I know that from this moment, the game has changed completely. Tomorrow morning, I will probably go to the meeting place with Mr. H. Father and son met in a private office. Private in a central high-rise building. Mr. H put a USB on the table. This is all evidence of shady dealings of Van Thin Group. Just make them public. They will collapse. Jack took the USB and turned it over and over in his hand. You think I will do that? Mr. H leaned back in his chair and squinted. If I don't work at VSB, I won't last long. Jack was silent. These documents could be the key to bringing down Van Thin. But if you use them, what does that mean? He had to accept Mr. H's interference in the road. I have chosen. What's your interest in this? Jack asked with a skeptical look. Mr. H smiled faintly. Do you think I help you without any purpose? He paused for a moment and then continued. If you defeat Van Thin, I want you to cooperate with me. Jack laughed coldly. So he finally revealed his intentions. Mr. H shrugged. I do not force you, but think about it. If you really want VCB to survive and develop, I need strong support. Jack clenched his fists, his mind spinning rapidly. If you refuse, Van Thin will continue to put pressure. Could even cause VCB to collapse, but if accepted, you will become a pawn in Mr. H's hand. Jack finally stood up. I will think. Mr. H looked at him with an unpredictable gaze. I wait for your answer. Jack left the office with the USB. In his head, a series of thoughts intertwined. This is a dangerous game, and you need the perfect move. When he arrived at the office, Jack called Juan into the classroom. What's up? Juan asked, looking at Jack's serious face. put USB on table, and this is proof about illegal transactions of Van Thin Group. Luan is surprised what he got them from. Slowly say from my father. Luan opened his mouth wide. Wait, you were talking about the father you never met? Jack nodded. He was one of the founders of Van Thin, but left now. He wants me to use these documents to overthrow them. Luan stared at Jack. What are you going to do? Jack crossed his arms and looked coldly at me. I don't believe him. Luan frowned. But if this document is real, it can help us escape from the oppression of Van Thin. Jack nodded. Yes, but we won't do it the way he wants. Always silently waiting for Jack's plan. Jack leaned forward suspiciously. Slow but decisive voice. We will verify these documents first. If true, instead of making them public, immediately we will use it to where, even with more powerful people, I want to destroy Van Thin in my own way, rather than becoming a puppet of any AI. Luan nodded. Sounds dangerous. Probably. Cold smile. We have no other choice. That night, Jack goes to see a powerful figure in the financial world. He is a great influencer in the industry and also has a deep hatred for Van Thin Group. When Jack put the USB on the table, Mr. Lee looked at him with interest. Young man, what do you want? Jack smiled. I want a cooperation. The village chief laughed. You think I will help you just because of this? Jack shook his head. Or not. I think you will help me because you want to see Van Thin collapse. And I'm the one who can make it happen. The village chief stared at Jack for a long time, then he laughed out loud. Good, I like your boldness. Jack stood up and shook hands with the village chief. Let's play a game of chess together. After reaching an agreement with Mr. Live, VCB begins to counterattack. Customers who were forced to leave Jack are now returning, while the internal affairs of Van Thin Group began to shake. By government pressure, Mr. H heard the news and called Jack. I use my material in my own way. Jack smiled faintly. I'm not an AI puppet. Mr. H was silent for a few seconds, then smiled. Good, you're my son. Jack did not answer, just quietly hung up. He knew the war was not over yet, but at least this time he didn't let AI control his fate. Jack has chosen his own path, independent of his father, but still use the opportunity to build VCB. The battle with Van Thin Group is still fierce, but now he had strong allies and a long-term plan. Can Jack win completely? Or are there other mysteries behind it? His mysterious father. The story is not over yet. After leaving the meeting with Mr. Jack drove home. I don't want to be alone tonight. I need a peaceful place after stressful moves. And that place is Tu Tien. Inside, he stopped the car in front of her house, hesitated a moment, then rang the bell. The door opened, and there stood the immortal, wearing only a loose sweater and shorts. Looks both casual and warm. Jack was a little surprised. Jack looked at her for a long time, then softly asked, Can I come in? Tu Tien smiled and leaned aside to let him in. Small apartment radiates familiar warmth. Jack sat down on the sofa and looked around quietly. Every time I come here, I feel relieved. Tu Tien brought Ra a cup of hot tea and sat down next to him. What's up? Jack sighed and leaned back in his chair as he met his biological father. Tu Tien was slightly startled. His father, whom he had never mentioned before. Jack nodded, his eyes thoughtful. He appeared and said he wanted to help him defeat the Van Thin Group. Tu Tien was silent for a moment, then gently asked, Do you believe him? Jack shook his head. No, but he used this opportunity to his advantage. Tu Tien smiled, her eyes gentle but determined. Jack, I know you always take care of everything yourself. But remember, you are not alone. No matter what, I'm still here. Jack looked at her, his eyes softened. He reached out and took her hand. Thank you, Tu Tien. You don't need any more words at that moment. She is here, always here, and that is enough. Although the road ahead is full of challenges, but Jack knew he was not alone. Tu Tien is always by his side. The girl who is willing to face everything with him, whether failure or success. And this is just the beginning of a new journey. Please leave a comment.